Welcome to Icon Online. I'm so glad that all of you are joining us today. My name is Kelly and I'm the lead pastor here, and I'm just thrilled to have all of you with us. It looks like my background just changed.
Yeah, I don't know.
We're still figuring out this green screen business.
Stupid background.
We're super professional. So anyway, I'm so glad that all of you are here. Hope that you've all had a fantastic week. I know that it's been a really great week for me. We've celebrated some birthdays in our house, and the weather has been warm and sunny and awesome. And so, yeah, I feel like I'm in a really great place today. So I hope that you all had a good week, and I'm just glad to be with you all today. We have just a couple of things to go over before we move into a time of worship with our wonderful worship pastor, Arlene. And so the few things to go over are this. First one is, if you are new or if you have not yet had a chance to fill out our Connect card, I would love for you to take a few seconds during the service at any point and fill that out. See,
Ignore the background.
We're just trying
change.
to give you a variety today. It could be worse. It could be like the roller coaster background, or like the beach.
Listen,
at least it's like a little bit more believable.
It's true. There's really a brick wall behind her, I promise.
we installed a brick wall in our bedroom just for Sundays.
It's really sick.
You're welcome. But anyway, if you haven't filled out a connection card, we'd love to invite you to do so. It's just a way for us to be able to stay in touch with you. And sorry about that. Our bedroom door got open and we can hear our children playing their video games at the moment. So, like I said, super professional. But anyway, fill out that Connect card. It just enables us to be able to keep you up to date on everything that we have going on around here. And then secondly, if you could use some prayer today, we would love to be able to agree with you in prayer. Even though we can't be in person right now and join hands or be together and pray, we can still agree together. So if you have some prayer requests this morning, go ahead and click on that prayer button. It will take you to a separate window where one of our hosts can meet you and hear what those needs are and agree with you in prayer. And then lastly, like always, I just want to say thank you to all of you for being so generous and continuing to give to Icon. We all know that's how churches work. The church is able to continue because we all pool our resources together and enable that to happen. So thank you so much for your generosity. And as always, if you are in need today, if you find yourself where maybe there's some bills that you're struggling to pay, just any kind of need that you might have financially, if you could use some extra help, we want to be able to partner with you. And so if you just send an email to info@iconchurch.com and let us know, we can get to, call you, hear you out, hear what those needs are, and hopefully be able to partner with you to help meet some of those needs. So here we are going to go into a time of worship with Arlene. So whatever feels comfortable for you, if you want to just sit quietly, if you want to sing along, just maybe let this be a time where you can reconnect with God and kind of just let God's peace rest on you. And then we'll come back here and we will go into today's message.
I stand before you now, the greatness of your renown. I have heard of the majesty and wonder of you, King of heaven. In humility I bow as your love in wave after wave crashes over me, crashes over me. For you are for us, you are not against. crashes over me, crashes over me. For you are for us, you are not against us. Champion of heaven, you made a way. Champion of heaven, you made a way for all to enter in. Thank you, Jesus. In the crushing, in the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil I now surrender. You are breaking new ground. So I yield to you and to your careful hand. When I trust you, I don't need to understand. So make me your vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. In the crushing, in the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil I now surrender. You are breaking new ground. You are breaking new ground. So make me your vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. 'Cause where there is new wine, there is new power, there is new freedom, and the kingdom is here. I lay down my old flames to carry a new fire today. 'Cause where there is new wine, there is new power, there is new freedom, and the kingdom is here. I lay down my old flames to carry a new fire today. So make me your vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. God, I came here with nothing but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine
Well, welcome back. Arlene, thank you so much, as usual, for leading us and giving us all a space where we can experience the peace of God and the presence of God. So we love you, and we're so grateful for your leadership in that way. Okay, so before we get into today's message, can we just talk about Easter for a minute? We were kind of talking about it in the lobby a little bit, but just to give those of you that weren't in the lobby just a chance, if you want to like make any comments about how it was for you. You guys, it was just so beautiful, like having an online experience at the same time as we were gathering in person, and it was just so beautiful. We got to meet people face to face who have been a part of the church since we went online only. So, we've never actually met each other. And so that was so beautiful to get to do that. And it just reminded me just of the beautiful things that the Spirit is doing in our community, and just getting to look out into people's eyes and to hear people talk about last week's experience online, and just seeing how, it's just a really beautiful thing that is happening. And I'm just so grateful to be a part of this community and for all of us to be able to pursue Jesus together and to care for one another. And it's just really great. So I hope that you all had a fantastic Easter. And I will say this too, it was funny, the day after, or a couple of days after, I'm a part of this kind of cohort with some other pastors around the nation, and we were on a Zoom call, and like different ones of them, they like are a part of like, fairly large churches that do multiple services, and they were all talking about how tired they were. And I was like, this is the first Easter that I can remember where I wasn't physically exhausted that I wasn't even able to engage with my family. Like, we had church and then we spent time as a family, and it was just really, really beautiful. So yeah, I just didn't want to cruise right past that. I just wanted to take a second and talk about that, and just tell you guys that I'm so grateful, and that it was so refreshing and just a beautiful picture of resurrection for me. Just our church it's been a year. And so it was just really beautiful to all come together. And I think everyone had a really great time. So yeah, just wanted to share that with all of you. Okay, so for today, today's message title is called Vines and Branches. And today we are going to be taking a look at John 15, where Jesus talks about this idea of Jesus being the vine and us, or his disciples, and by extension us, being the branches. And so I'm going to start off the message just by reading the text, and then we'll dive into it. It's in John 15, and it says this: I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, it is he that bears much fruit, for apart from me he can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers, and the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit and so prove to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be full. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. And so first, to kind of start off, let's talk a little bit about vines and branches, okay? Vineyards in the first century, particularly in that area, vineyards were a large part of the local economy. And this is also the case in Old Testament times as well as in the first century. And a healthy vineyard that produced a good crop of grapes would have sustained a farmer. It would have served as a big contribution to the economy. They were really important. And so when you have a vineyard, the health of the fruit, the health of the grapes that was produced depended solely on the health of the branches that they were growing from. And the health of the branches was dependent upon the branches being connected to the vine and receiving their nutrients and their ability to grow and flourish from it. And tending to the vines and the branches was very careful and meticulous work, and it had to be done with great care by the farmer or the vine dresser, or now we'd probably refer to it as a vinter. If the branches were healthy, then good fruit would be produced, and the vineyard would produce grapes that made good wine, and it would be of great use and of great financial benefit and of great purpose for the people. And so here in John 15, we see Jesus using this metaphor of the vine, which actually is a metaphor that we can see being used all throughout Scripture. And it's important to note that when Jesus is using this language of the vines and branches, his disciples would have already been very familiar with this. This was a metaphor that was actually used in the Old Testament to describe the nation of Israel. The nation of Israel was described as being this vine that God had planted. In Psalm 80, Israel is referred to the vine that was brought out of Egypt and planted into the promised land. And you see, as the story goes, as we read throughout the Old Testament, it's this story of God establishing the nation of Israel that was, to be this chosen nation who would show the world who God is and what God is like. And as humans do, we also see throughout the Old Testament that Israel, the nation of Israel, continued to get it wrong. And, we find throughout the Old Testament, there's different passages, but in Isaiah 5:7, it says this: "The nation of Israel is the vineyard of the Lord of heaven's armies. The people of Judah are his pleasant garden. He expected a crop of justice, but instead he found oppression. He expected to find righteousness, but instead he heard cries of violence." So when we read the Old Testament, we find many stories that illustrate the people of God messing things up and failing to actually grasp what God is like. And so because of this, because the nation of Israel had been referred to as the vine, and this vine and branches language was very familiar to the disciples, they would have known this when Jesus launched into this teaching. They would have known that Israel was referred to as this vine that God had planted with the purpose of producing good and lasting fruit. So I just wanted to give a little bit of that backstory because that helps us understand to a greater degree the significance of what Jesus is actually saying in these verses. So these are the things that would have been on the disciples' minds as they were listening to Jesus. So knowing this, what I want to do today is break the scripture down and just kind of piece by piece dig a little bit deeper into it to see, okay, so then what does this mean for us today? I know Jesus was talking to his disciples, but what does this mean for us today? And so what we're going to do is something a little bit different. We're going to kind of take piece by piece, and at the end of each section, I'm going to throw up a question on the screen for you to be able to contemplate and to process. And we're not going to answer the questions right away. We're going to come back at the end and then go through and answer the questions. But that way you can write it down. You can take a few minutes right there to process kind of some of your thoughts. And then at the end, when we come back to the questions, I would love for those of you that feel comfortable to share your responses in the chat so we can have a discussion of sorts. I know that it's just me here, but I want today to feel a little bit like a Bible study where we're just going to kind of break this down and we can each have an opportunity to share our thoughts and what we're learning. So the first section that we're going to talk about is we're going to start with verses 1 and 2. And I'm going to go ahead and read it again for you. So John 15, 1 and 2 says, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit." Now this phrase, the very first thing he says, "I am the true vine," is loaded with meaning, okay? This kind of reminds me of times throughout the Gospels when we would see Jesus say things like, "You have heard it said, but I say," those kinds of statements. It's like Jesus is saying, you have always known the nation of Israel to be referred to as the vine, but I'm telling you the true vine is actually me. So you have thought that God was like this, but in me, you will see what God is actually like. See, Jesus is the fulfillment of all that Israel was meant to be. And now on to the vine dresser. So Jesus says, I am the true vine and my Father is the vine dresser. So a vine dresser or a vinter has the role of tending to and caring for the vines. And part of this is the pruning process. So pruning is a necessary step in order to have a healthy and thriving vine. Sorry, I just totally lost my place in my notes, but I'm going to find it and it's going to be fine. Okay, so without the pruning process, and if any of you have ever tended to plants or, maybe you grow things, I'm terrible at it, but maybe you've done this before and you know that oftentimes, and we have a lemon tree in our backyard, which has now sadly died because of the snowstorm and the freeze. But when it was still alive, there was one time where Dan had to go out and prune and trim away a bunch of the branches. And after he did that, the next time it bloomed, it had just beautiful, gorgeous, huge lemons on it. So without the pruning process, the branches are unable to produce healthy fruit. So the vine dresser's role is to decide where to prune and make cuts and where to leave things intact. The vine dresser makes very strategic cuts in order to produce the healthiest and the most robust vines. And just like the branches on a vine need to be pruned in order to flourish, we need that too in our lives. We need some pruning, and we all can have this tendency to carry things around that are a hindrance to our ability to grow and to flourish. Sometimes these things can be certain mindsets we have that are holding us back. Sometimes it can be behaviors that we're engaging in that aren't healthy for us and that don't push us toward wholeness. Sometimes the things that need to be pruned are things that keep us from working toward shalom and the flourishing of our neighbor. Sometimes we can hold to certain theologies, these beliefs about God that when examined closely can be found to be producing bad fruit, not only in our own lives, but also in the ways that we treat other image bearers. There are all kinds of things that we could put into this category of things that need to be pruned in our life. We could shame and fear and hatred and holding grudges, greed, apathy, certainty, judgment, pride. The list goes on and on and on and on. We all have things in our life that need to be sort of cut away in order for us to be able to be at our best, in order for us to flourish. And so the first question, and Dan's going to put the questions up, and we think this is going to work, so we're trying this out. We're going to put up this first question. I'm going to read it to you really quick, and then we're going to put up the slide, and then we're going to give you about 2 minutes to process and to write that question down, and then we'll come back and we'll move on. So the first question is, what is one thing that you think needs to be pruned in your own life in order for growth to not be stifled? Okay, so hopefully you'll had a chance to write that down, and you can just keep kind of contemplating that as we move on, and then we'll come back at the end and answer it. So let's go ahead now and move on to the next part of the passage that I want to talk about, and it's verses 4 and 5. And it says this: "Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, it is he that bears much fruit, for apart from me you can do nothing." So here in these verses, we see this word abide. Some translations say remain in me and I will remain in you. And the word abide means persevering, continuing, lasting, staying with, being at home with. So abiding in the vine, remaining connected to Jesus, continuing to be close to Jesus, staying with, being at home with Jesus will ensure that the fruit of our life is healthy and whole and good. And see, Jesus made a really big deal about the kind of fruit that our lives produce. Jesus wasn't so much concerned with certain kinds of belief. He was more concerned with the results of those beliefs and how it impacted others. He was concerned about our wholeness and the wholeness of all. And also this way that Jesus speaks of abiding, this him and us and him, it's this beautiful picture of our interdependence and our inextricable connection to one another. See, vines and branches, they're kind of all tangled up with one another, and all of the branches are dependent on the vine, and the vine is their source. The vine provides their sustenance. All the branches run together out of the vine. Sometimes they can get so intertwined that you don't know where one begins and another one ends. And this vine and branches metaphor gives this picture of communal connection, because rarely can one branch be distinguished from another. And just like a vine and its branches, the Christian life is most truly lived in this like jumbled up mess of interconnectedness with God, with one another. This is where our faith really becomes most whole and most true. And because we're all connected, the fruit that we're producing matters even more. It matters even more. Let's move on to verse 10 through 12. It says, if you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be full. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. So when we're talking about abiding in him,